Ibrahim Traoré is one of the most consequential and controversial leaders in Africa today. As the head of Burkina Faso's military junta, he represents a new generation of revolutionary nationalism, but his rise to power and his vision for his country are deeply intertwined with immense challenges. In this script, we will explore his background, rise, ideology, policies, and the dilemmas he faces. Ibrahim Traoré was born in March 1988 in Kera, a rural village in the Mohun province of Burkina Faso. He pursued higher education at the University of Ouagadougou, where he studied geology. During his university years, Traoré was politically active, joining student associations, including the left-leaning Association Nationale des Étudiants du Burkina. This early exposure to student activism and Pan-African ideas would later shape his political worldview. In 2010, Traoré joined the National Army, enrolling at the George's Namoano Military Academy. He specialized in artillery, a technical role that gave him both combat experience and a firm grounding in military operations. Over time, he climbed the ranks. By 2022, he had become a key officer, reportedly heading an artillery regiment in Kaya, in the northern Burkina Faso. To understand Traoré's ascent, it's important to grasp the context of deepening insecurity in Burkina Faso. For years, the country has been under serious threat from jihadist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. The insurgency has destabilized vast regions, eroding state authority and fueling widespread suffering. In January 2022, dissatisfaction among the military against the government's handling of the security crisis boiled over into a coup. President Roch Marc Christian Kabore was removed, and Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba took power under a transitional military junta, the Patriotic Movement for Safeguard and Restoration, the MPSR. Traoré was part of this milieu, but over time, he and other younger officers came to view Damiba's rule as ineffective, especially in dealing with the insurgency. On September 30, 2022, Traoré led a second decisive coup. Loyal soldiers, reportedly including members of the Cobra Special Forces, seized key points in the capital, Ouagadougou. According to reports, Traoré declared Damiba unfit, suspended the constitution, dissolved the government, and assumed control as head of state and supreme commander of the armed forces. Just days later, on October 6, 2022, Traoré was officially sworn in as interim president. In his inaugural address, he painted the situation in stark terms. Burkina Faso was in a security and humanitarian crisis without precedent and must reclaim its territory from terrorist groups. Traoré's vision is heavily influenced by Pan-Africanism, anti-imperialism, and the legacy of Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary hero of Burkina Faso. Analysts note that he often uses Sankara-era symbolism, rhetoric, and even dress to legitimize his rule. He frames his coup not merely as a power grab, but as a revolution for national sovereignty, a return to African dignity and self-determination. On the international front, Traoré has shifted Burkina Faso away from its traditional ties with France, his country's former colonial power. In contrast, he has cultivated deeper relationships with Russia, Turkey, and other non-Western partners. Traoré helped launch the Alliance of Sahel States, a regional bloc including Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, aimed at mutual security cooperation and a stronger regional identity. One of the pillars of Traoré's agenda is economic sovereignty. He believes that Burkina Faso's natural wealth, especially its gold, should not be exploited by foreign companies for external profit, but managed by the state for national development. Key economic reforms under his leadership include 1. Nationalization of gold mines. His government has taken control of major gold concessions such as Bungu and Wagnion, previously held by foreign firms. 2. New mining code. This law gives the state a free stake, 15 to 30% in mining operations, and incentivizes companies to contribute to a national gold reserve. 3. Gold refinery. Burkina Faso has built, or is building, a gold refinery capable of processing hundreds of tons per year, so gold can be refined locally instead of exported raw. 4. Agriculture and industry. Traore has launched ambitious programs to support farmers, distributing tractors, motorcycles and pumps, and to build processing industries like tomato processing plants and cotton factories. 5. Rejecting external debt. He has framed his economic policy around rejecting loans from institutions like the IMF and World Bank, promoting a model of self-reliance. His economic narrative speaks to national pride. Burkina Faso should not just export raw resources, it should transform them, generate local value, and use the proceeds to build infrastructure, industry, and human capital. Security remains the biggest test for Traore. In April 2023, he declared a general mobilization to bolster the military. This included organizing the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, the VDP, a civilian militia meant to support the army in counter-terrorism operations. But this strategy has critics. There have been reports of forced conscription and accusations that civilians are being drawn into frontline conflict, blurring the line between defenders and ordinary citizens. Meanwhile, jihadist violence has continued to plague large parts of the country. Some analyses argue that despite his aggressive rhetoric, Traore's government has yet to deliver a decisive turning point in the fight against extremist groups. At the same time, his government appears to be centralizing power, dissolving independent institutions, including the Electoral Commission, a move seen by critics as limiting democratic checks. While Traore projects himself as a visionary revolutionary, his rule raises serious concerns about governance and human rights. 1. Authoritarian shift. The dissolution of the Independent National Electoral Commission suggests consolidation of military control over political life. 2. Press freedom and opposition. Observers report increasing repression of critics, including journalists, civil society actors, and even members of the judiciary. 3. Legal reforms. Under his transitional government, controversial laws have been proposed or enacted, for example, criminalizing same-sex relations. 4. Use of force. The mobilization of civilian militias and the deployment of security forces raise worries about accountability, especially given Burkina Faso's history of fragile institutions. Traore's leadership matters not only for Burkina Faso, but for the broader Sahel region and even Africa as a whole. By forging alliances like the Alliance of Sahel States, he aims to reduce reliance on former colonial powers and shift the geopolitical order in West Africa. His resource nationalism, especially around gold, has increased talk of a gold-backed currency for the Sahel Alliance, which could challenge the dominance of the CFA franc. His turn to Russia and Turkey reflects a broader geopolitical realignment. He is positioning Burkina Faso as a sovereign actor, less dependent on Western aid. Symbolically, his embrace of Sankara's legacy resonates with a new generation of Africans disillusioned with neocolonial systems. Despite bold ambitions, Traore's project is not without major risks. Security trap. If jihadist violence continues or intensifies, his legitimacy could be undercut. Military solutions alone may not be enough. Economic sustainability. Nationalizing mines and building infrastructure are costly. Without stable investment and efficient management, these programs could falter. International isolation. While pivoting away from the West may be ideologically popular, it could limit access to global markets, technical expertise, and financing. Authoritarian backlash. Consolidating power may fuel internal opposition, both from within the military and from the population, especially if promised freedoms or development don't materialize. Transition risks. His initial promise to return to civilian rule, elections by July 2024, has been delayed. The extension of the transitional period raises the question, is this a transitional junta or a long-term military regime? Ibrahim Traoré may be remembered in different ways depending on how his project unfolds. A revolutionary visionary. For many, he is a young, principled leader reclaiming Burkina Faso's sovereignty, fighting imperial legacies and investing in national wealth. A Pan-African symbol. His ideology taps into Pan-African aspirations. By rejecting Western influence and strengthening regional alliances, he presents an alternative path for African nations,